Another type of conversion we'll commonly be exposed to is metric system conversions. The metric system is based on prefixes which stand for different powers of 10. Some of the more common ones are shown here. For example, the prefix milli stands for 10 to the negative 3 or 1,000th of something. The prefix kilo stands for 10 to the positive 3 or 1,000 times something. For example, a kilometer stands for 1,000 meters, or a milligram stands for 1,000th of a gram. And we can make use of these prefixes to convert numbers from one prefix to another. Let's try one. So here we want to convert 30 kilometers to micrometers. Now the first thing we want to do when you're using the metric system to convert numbers is to recognize the base units. So in this case, meters are our base units. So we're not going to worry about those until the end. Then we want to recognize our prefixes. So here we have kilo and micro as our prefixes. And the number in the beginning, we're going to hold on to that for now, and we'll use it at the end. We want to use the prefix kilo and micro to determine our conversion factor to get from kilo to micro. And once we determine this conversion factor, we can times our original number, which is 30, by that number to get our final answer. So let's go back to our conversion chart and find our two prefixes. So here's kilo, which is 10 to the power 3. Here's micro, which is 10 to the power negative 6. So kilo, 10 to the positive 3, micro, 10 to the negative 6. Now to find our conversion factor, we want to find the difference between these two numbers. So we can just subtract them. So our conversion factor is going to be equal to positive 3 minus a minus 6. Don't forget the two minuses cancel each other out. And we get a conversion factor of 9. Now let's not worry about whether this number is positive or negative yet, because sometimes you can remember tricks to get the sign correct, but it's easier if you look at what the units are and it'll let us know whether the conversion factor should be positive or negative. So we're going from kilo to micro, and we know that the units of kilo, or 10 to the 3, are greater than the units of micro, which is 10 to the negative 6. So if our units are getting smaller, our final number has to be the same overall size. So something in kilometers and then something in micrometers, the units are smaller, so we need more of those things to make something be the exact same size, in this case the same length. So if our units are getting smaller, so for example if our units decrease, our power must increase, which means our conversion factor is going to be positive. So we'll keep this as a positive 9. Now to get our final answer, all we do is take our original number, which is 30 kilometers. We're going to times it by 10 to our conversion factor power, 10 to the 9th. Now this is actually going to be in micrometers per kilometer. That's what we determined up here. The kilometers would cancel out, and our answer is going to be 30 times 10 to the 9th. And this is now going to be in micrometers. Let's try one more. This time we have 10 squared millimeters to meters. So again, our base units are meters, our prefix is milli, and our second unit has no prefix, but that's okay. We can just use our chart to go to the spot with no prefix, and the power that actually goes with no prefix is 10 to the 0. And if we remember, look back on our chart, milli now is 10 to the negative 3. Again, we can find the difference. Negative 3 minus 0 is just going to be, again, we only care about the absolute value of this right now. So we put the absolute value signs. So our factor is going to be factor of 3. Let's check out the units. Millimeters, or milli, is actually smaller than the base unit. So our units are our prefix is getting bigger. That means our conversion, our number must actually have to get smaller to balance out. So that tells us our conversion factor is going to be negative this time. So it's going to be a factor of negative 3, and it really means 10 to the negative 3. So we can then just multiply our original number by our conversion factor, 10 squared times 10 to the negative 3. Be careful, remember rules of multiplying things to exponents. You add the exponents, so this gives us a final value of 10 to the power of negative 1. And in this case, it'll be meters. Now let's try one more. It's a little bit trickier. It says convert 700 centimeters squared to millimeters squared. Now here we got to be a little bit careful. So again, we can use the same rules in the beginning. We want to go from centa to milli. On our chart, if we look back, centa is power of -2, milli is power of -3. The difference here is going to be -2 minus a -3 for a factor of power of 1. Our prefix is getting smaller. Our units are getting smaller, going from centa to milli, which means our number has to get bigger, which means our conversion factor should be to the positive power. But now here's why you be careful. So everything so far is just like the other conversions. But because our units are squared, we can think about it as we have to actually convert each centimeter to a millimeter. So there's 2 centimeters here, we have to convert to 2 millimeters here. So we have to do our conversion factor 2 times. So 10 to the power 1 times 10 to the power 1. This gives us an overall conversion factor, or a total conversion factor, of 10 to the power of 2, because these numbers are squared. And if they were cubed, you have to do this 3 times, or 4 times if they were to the 4th power, and so on. But once you realize that, take your conversion factor. You can either square it or cube it or do whatever you have to do to it. And then when you're done, take your overall conversion factor, just multiply it back by your original number. So we got 700 centimeters squared times 10 squared. Now this is going to be square millimeters per square centimeters. Again, the centimeters would cancel out. We got 700 times 10 squared, which gives us 70,000 square millimeters. So just be careful when your units are squared or cubed, that you can treat them the same way, you can get your same conversion factor, but remember, you have to multiply by that conversion factor the number of times that your unit is to a power up here. So in this case, you multiply it twice.